I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you write, I think very honestly and very transparently, that over time for you, your belief in Christianity faded like a dimmer switch, slowly turning the light down. And many people who have, if you like, decided that it's not true and they don't believe it, I think intrinsically are inclined to be highly critical of it. You set out to be very objective and to provocatively say to us, we're still massively shaped. Nothing, you say, has shaped a culture as powerfully as Christianity. They're very interesting observations, and I'd like to come to those now. Is it possible for a historian to be truly empirical?
No.
No.
No, of course not. So, I mean, just to answer that question first, about 10 years ago, I started work on a book looking at the origins of Islam. I wanted to, basically, the question I wanted to ask myself about this was, just as in the western half of the Roman Empire, you can see that there are continuities from Roman rule that feed into the kingdoms of early medieval Latin Christendom. That would be kind of unarguable. It would be uncontroversial. So likewise, in what becomes the Islamic Caliphate, it's pretty clear that there are fairly strong Roman and Persian elements in this kind of emergent Islamic civilization, whether it's the mosaics or the domes or whatever. These are continuities that are coming from the great empires that had existed before it. And so I wanted to write a book that said, well, to what extent is the Caliphate a kind of successor empire to the Roman and Persian empires that the Arabs had conquered and defeated? And answering that question actually kind of drew me into much more treacherous and boggy waters than I'd anticipated, because ultimately I kind of ended up questioning the received narratives that were written a century, 2 centuries after the life of Muhammad, and therefore it seemed to me, we're talking about the way that fiction and non-fiction kind of bleed into one another, and the way that stories come to shape reality, and the emergence of Islam and the stories that came to be told by Muslims about the life of Muhammad, about the emergence of the Quran, about the early years of what they came to see as the Islamic conquests, although I came to think that they weren't Islamic at all. This required me to question some pretty fundamental beliefs. And obviously, this had the potential to be quite upsetting to devout Muslims, because I was questioning things that were incredibly important to them. And I remember giving a talk about it, and there was a Muslim in the audience who put her hand up and said, "Why have you done this? Why are you questioning these things that are so important to me? These stories are so important to me." And you were like, someone who's just kind of, you're like a bull in a china shop, just smashing all this stuff. Why have you done it? You would never do this to your own beliefs. And I had already come to that conclusion because I was aware, writing about why I thought that the Quran could not have come via an angel from God, why I thought the Quran had to have emerged from a human context, a context in which Jewish and Christian and Zoroastrian and Roman and Persian and pagan and Arab elements were kind of mingling in a great petri dish to produce this text, and in the long run, this kind of great civilization. I'd come to the conclusion the reason that I believed that was because I didn't believe in the Muslim God. And so therefore, I was not adopting a position of neutrality. My secular, skeptical, liberal, humanist, Western perspective was no more neutral than the perspective of a Muslim believer. And so one of the things that made me want to write about Dominion was a recognition of that Muslim woman that she had a point, that it was important. It was kind of incumbent on me, if I was going to question the fundamentals of Muslim belief, that I should question the fundamentals of my beliefs as a kind of liberal skeptic. And so and I'd already begun to think, well, I should be doing this. But this kind of, it put steel in my backbone. I thought, yes, that's what I must do. And so essentially, when I looked at my foundation myths, which were kind of enlightenment, the idea that, you know, there had been darkness and then there was light, I'd already come to realize that these were myths, as surely mythical as anything that Muslims believed.
Yeah, but if I just for a moment, you make the point that myths may be myths, but that doesn't mean that they're wrong.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I think the whole thing of looking at the myths of Islam, which I didn't believe in, and I had no kind of childhood sense of identification with. They didn't kind of move me. I was much more able to be kind of objective and chilly in my attitude to them. Did make me kind of alert to the degree to which the myths that I did believe in, or the myths that I had been brought up in, that even if I tried to step back from them, even if I tried to kind of put them under the microscope, they still weren't dead to me. They still had the power, and in that sense, that perhaps they were still true to me.